I think for every author, whether they're aware of it or not, that, they may think that they're doing it for a specific audience and they've got a market in mind, and but really everyone is writing for themselves first and foremost. Nobody's going to spend as much time with a book as the author. They're learning the most from it and getting the most healing and most reward out of it.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi, and welcome to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nusky, and today I have somebody very special lined up for you. Here's visionary author GERALD STANEK. Welcome to the show, GERALD.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Absolutely a pleasure to have you here. Now, I've been looking through your website, GERALD, and you have a fascinating approach to book writing. You have a long list of incredible titles there, of which we're going to be taking a bit of a look at, but we're also going to be focused on your latest novel called Rosamundi. But before we do all of that, GERALD, I'd love to learn a little bit more about yourself, as is tradition on the My Future Business Show. Would you mind sharing a little bit about things like where you are, what you like doing, and that sort of a background?
Well, I'm living in Ojai, California, which is an interesting little town, which was founded, well, not founded, but there's a lot of theosophists here. Krishnamurti, I don't know if anyone's heard of him. He used to live here. And it's a very spiritual place. There's a lot of spiritual centers here.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like to do, other than writing, I play a few instruments, hang out, enjoy the sunshine in California here, and
Yep.
Meditate.
Meditate. And I suspect at the moment, GERALD, you've got a fair bit of free time to meditate and write books.
Yeah, we're all locked down here.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, well, look, all the best to you and yours in this respect. Now, GERALD, I looked at your website and I think to myself, it is an incredible thing to be able to write just one book, let alone a long list of tales inside of a book. Do you find that writing comes naturally to you? Is it a skill that you've had to develop over time?
I've definitely had to develop it. I mean, a certain amount of it comes naturally. Thinking along the lines of storytelling and narrative came very, very naturally. Always had a lot of story ideas in my head. But the actual writing, you have to learn it like anything else. It takes a while to learn how to craft a story properly and keep the reader's interest. That sort of thing.
Because it would be very easy to go off track, wouldn't it? You've got one train of thought, and a day passes, and then you put down the pen, as it were, and then you come back and you have to pick up that trail again. How difficult is that process?
That's very difficult for me. I mean, I think a lot of writers write more quickly. I end up spending, half the time I've put into writing, I end up spending the first half of it going over what I did the day before and trying to get my head back in that space and failing and deciding it's garbage and throwing it out and starting over. And yeah, it's an awful lot of time spent trying to keep that focus on where you were headed in the first place.
I've had the pleasure. I have a special place in my heart for book authors, as you may know, GERALD, and I've been speaking with some people who talk about different things that they do, like finishing a day mid-sentence, so it sort of triggers a response, a reminder for them, hey, this is where I was thinking. But they also refer to as a vomit draft. Is it something that you would do, is just get it all out there as much as possible? And how much can you do in one day when you're in the flow?
I do not write like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are people who just write very quickly, or people who can sit down and talk to you for hours on end. I'm not one of those people. I rarely have anything to say, and everything I put down is very deliberate. I take a long time planning out exactly how I want to say it. And yeah, I mean, if I'm working really well, in 8 hours I've still probably only written 2,000-3,000 words at the most. That
But
would be on a really
they're high
good day.
quality words, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, many days that's only, you've only done a couple of paragraphs and that's all you can get out.
And I guess mindset would have a great deal to do with this. Let's talk a little bit about that. And because I know that the My Future Business audience, there are many aspiring book authors inside of us. And I
Yeah.
wonder if we could help them understand your daily process.
Well, I used to always write first thing in the morning. I would wake up with ideas and, but the older I've gotten, the harder that is to do. And so, yeah, I'll usually start writing after lunch. And, if it doesn't go well, I'll give up after, 40 minutes or so.
Hmm.
And if it goes well, I'll keep writing for several hours.
You,
But,
you, talk,
you have to,
you talked about meditation as part of your,
yeah.
is it a daily part for you?
Yes,
Mm.
yes, and if I'm ever particularly stuck, that's the first thing I try to go to is, meditate, get some clearer energy coming through, so I can return to focus.
Now, Gerald, how many titles have you actually written, and how long has it taken you to write all of them?
I think I've got about a dozen now. I think 5 children's books, which they don't take that long. Trying to get illustrations done and getting them published is what takes long with those. Um, and my first novel took me almost 10 years.
Wow.
And this last one, Rosa Monday, has taken me about 4.5 years to do. But a couple of the other ones, I had a novel done in 9 months, 10 months. So it's varied. But if you tackle a subject that really interests you, it's going to take a while because you're going to have to do a lot of research for it. And while you're writing it, some people say you can do all the research ahead of time, but that's baloney. Because you always find more things while you're writing it that you have to go and research. So,
Absolutely. Do you find, Gerald, that the environment in which you live has an impact on the thoughts and what ends up actually being inside of your books?
oh, of course. And I've lived in a few different places in varying climates. I mean, here it's very sunny
Hmm.
and very temperate, but I also lived in upstate New York for 10 years, which has quite a lot of winter and gray skies for 7 months. And it definitely changes your mood and changes what's coming to you to write about.
Yeah, it. I always think about sources of inspiration because some days I'll sit down in front of a piece of paper and pick up the pen and I'll have absolute blanks. Do you ever have days like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I always found that going for a walk, taking a hike someplace really quiet helps. If you don't like to meditate, just get out and walk and get some real peace and quiet and empty your thoughts out and fresh ideas will come in.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I know that you are primarily you've done some children's books, but you're into this relatively new genre of visionary fiction. Can you talk us through what that actually is?
Visionary fiction is based on the idea that the expansion of consciousness itself is what drives the plot. So at least one of your major characters is going to become awakened to something that they didn't realize existed before. And really, the expansion of human consciousness is the goal of visionary fiction, I would say. Uh, and in particular, in my writing, I would even be more specific and say that the awareness of the soul, the group soul, the soul of humanity, and that you're connected to it whether you realize it or not.
Hmm.
So the characters generally, awaken to that and find that they've got different motivations afterwards and care about different things, and hopefully all of humanity's better off for it.
You're talking about that side of things, and we currently are going through some, I guess, some tough times globally. Um,
Yeah.
is the vibration and the messages that are coming through in your books in any way reflecting, current day happenings? Do you think?
Well, Rosamundi is set in the near future, and things aren't looking very good.
Hmm.
And it's that's all these concerns are reflected in what I think about and what I write about. And so it's full of characters that are dealing with the same thing. down the road, global warming and all of the climate catastrophes. And they're looking for a way out. And they find that connecting to the consciousness of something greater than themselves is their best hope.
There seems to be elements of fiction, non-fiction in visionary writing. Would that be fair?
Elements of nonfiction. Well, my writing is certainly tries to be based in current common culture and normal everyday belief systems and thought systems. So there's a lot of information in there that could be considered, nonfiction.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in anything. It is really it's
No,
fiction.
nor am I.
I try to take everything into account and do my research, but it's not historical. It's
Yeah.
fiction.
Yeah. I'd love to take a bit of a deep dive, if we could, into every element of the latest novel that you have written, Rosa Mundi. What was the inspiration and what is the storyline for this book?
Well, the inspiration really is trying to show the group nature of consciousness. We're not all isolated individuals doing our thing, even if we might think we are. There's a greater consciousness that's moving through us and helping to guide us and get us to work together. And the storyline starts out with a hospice worker who has been assigned to the home of a self-help guru and author, and she's got her little group of followers there, and they're all awaiting her death. And she gives out a few instructions as she's dying for various, her grandson and some other people. She sets them out on a quest, and the hospice worker ends up going with them, and they're trying to find what she has told them is the place of the crossing. So they set off on a road trip, and I guess you have to read it to find out what happens.
Absolutely, I think it's very important for the sake of context to learn just that little bit about this wonderful book, Rosa Mundi. Thank you so very much. I love to talk about how authors feel when they complete a book, of which you must have felt a number of times. How did that make you feel when you put down the pen and you've said to yourself, "Hey, I've finished this book"?
It always surprises me the amount of relief and the amount of emotion it brings up. Of course, it would have to. You spend years doing something, but it still always surprises me how emotional it ends up being. It's like you've given birth, practically. It's taken years to do it, and there's a lot of relief that you're finally done.
Yeah,
It can be a struggle.
And that's coming through from the work that I've seen you do and the things I've seen you write. I wonder, is there an element of, obviously release, but I don't know, some sort of closure, some sort of healing that goes with your work for you personally?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Every book is teaching. I think for every author, whether they're aware of it or not, that they may think that they're doing it for a specific audience and they've got a market in mind, and but really everyone is writing for themselves first and foremost. Nobody's going to spend as much time with a book as the author.
Yeah.
And they're learning the most from it, and getting the most healing and most reward out of it.
I'd love to, switch gears a little bit, Gerald, and talk about the process of production and getting your books published. Are you self-publishing? What's the process?
Up until this last one, my other books have been self-published. I haven't really spent a lot of time trying to market them. It was more just a matter of getting them published and available. But this last one, I felt it was really worth extra effort, and I managed to find a publisher, Vizia Fiction. They're publishing visionary fiction, and they agreed to publish it, and I'm very glad for that. It takes takes a lot of the marketing challenges away from me.
Absolutely. Make your life a little easier. Out of all of the books that you have written, which do you find has had the most impact for you personally? The one that you might reflect on the most? Would it be your latest or
It
another?
always seems like your latest, yeah. I mean, because that's the one you can just fresh in your mind. My first novel, The Eighth House, also had a very big impact, and that one actually took me longer. So, yeah, those two, the first one and the last one.
Are your books the sort of books that you can do revisions to and release new editions, or are they once a book's done, that is it?
I did revise The Eighth House a few years after I finished it, but none of the other ones. They stand as they are, I
They
think.
stand as they are. I know that a lot of people like this idea of having their books in audio format. Is that something that interests you?
Well, I don't listen to audiobooks.
Hmm.
Uh, I did have a friend that said, well, he doesn't have time to read anything that I've done at all. Why don't you do an audiobook? So I did do an audiobook of Skirting the Gorge, but it's not easy to do the audio properly and get it edited properly. So I started doing another one of them, and my first try at that was refused by Audible. It wasn't up to snuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, I haven't. I believe Rosamundi will probably be having an audiobook available, but
Fantastic. I'm
it's a
looking
lot
through.
of work to do that too.
Oh,
So
I can only imagine how many hours would go into this process. Now, in terms of your any upcoming work after you've gone through your process with Rosa Monday, are you doing any book tours? How are you making yourself available to promote this book?
well, it's pretty difficult at this particular time
Mm.
to do any kind of touring. I believe there's going to be a blog tour, which basically just getting it out to different bloggers. Yeah, I don't have any book signings planned right now. I mean, it's hard to plan anything. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I mentioned earlier, you've got a lot of time to meditate and a lot of time to pick up the pen.
yeah,
Are you forming any ideas for upcoming works?
not yet. It usually takes me. I've usually gone at least a year between books. I'd like to let it sit and see what comes.
And that's very important because a lot of people push themselves too much, don't they? What do you say to people like that? Is it horses for courses? It might take you a year to refresh, where it might take others a couple of days. What do you say to that?
Well, yeah, if you have the temperament and the mindset for that, and you've got plenty of ideas, why not go for it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I need a break.
Now, I notice here, I've been looking again at your website, and you primarily type out your content because I think there's some power in the pen. Do you ever pick up the pen and take down notes?
Oh, my handwriting is practically illegible even for myself. So
You've got doctor's quality handwriting.
yeah, I was told as a child that didn't really matter as long as I got the answers right. So I never really learned good penmanship.
Oh, I love it. In terms of Rosamundi, is it a book that, or in fact, your whole library of books, of which you have one, would you say that they're pick up and don't put down, or are they one of these things that your dog ear of a night time after you've gone back? Are they easy books to consume? I guess is what my question is.
It depends on the consumer. I think by and large they're thoughtful books. They're not something you can probably read when you're half asleep because you're going to miss a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But they've got some interest in them. Yeah, I've had some people read them right through. So it depends on what you're used to reading, I guess.
Yeah, so if you can just run us through, because I'd like to share this with my future business audience, the list of titles that you have. Could you walk us through them?
Sure. The Eighth House is sort of an adventure coming of age novel. Be good for teens or late teens, young adults. I mean, it's longer than a young adult book, but
Mm-hmm.
it's generally for younger people. Skirting the Gorge is a novel. I wrote about Ithaca, New York, living there for a while, and that's a very interesting book. Ithaca is a great little town. They've got a lot of gorges there, and waterfalls and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of setting. The road to Shambhala takes place in Ojai and Sedona, Arizona, which is a great mystical kind of setting. That one is sort of a novel of initiation, becoming aware of the higher self.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonoran Ruminations is short stories. Contact and Other Impressions is also short stories. The Sonoran Ruminations that was one of the first things I wrote, and those are pretty ordinary, everyday stories. But Contact and Other Impressions is rather esoteric, and it's got a lot of spiritual aspects to it.
These I'm just looking at the artwork. I'm going through your website here, and the artwork is just fascinating. Is this something that you've outsourced? Who does your artwork?
My wife is a visionary artist, Joyce Huntington.
It's amazing.
And she did a lot of the illustrations for the children's books, and I used her paintings for the covers of some of the books. So
yeah, they're incredible. I think when we talk about books, one of the things that, now I don't know if you agree with this or not, Gerald, that the title is very important. How much emphasis do you give to the title of the book?
Oh, probably not as much as I should. I'm not a big marketing, to me, that's a whole nother skill, is marketing, coming up with the short, pithy book descriptions and the titles. That's a different skill than inventing a whole story to me, so I find it difficult. The Road to Shambhala, that was the title of the painting that my wife did, that I chose for the cover. And I said, oh, that'll work for the book. It works pretty well. I don't know how appealing the title is or not, but it fits. And same with Skirting the Gorge. That was a painting that she had done, and I thought it was a great title for a book.
Well, you can clearly tell that she has some great level of skill there. It's an absolute credit to her. So now, with everything that is happening in the world at the moment, what do you see happening for you in the upcoming months?
Well, hopefully I'm going to sell hundreds of thousands of books.
Obviously, no doubt about that.
Other than that, I think, we're going to be staying put for many more months, and not getting out much at all, trying to stave off this.
And I think there's something to take away from this part of the conversation, because I think mindset, we're all in this lockdown mode. What are you doing personally, Gerald, to stay positive and stay connected with, I guess, your visionary work?
Meditation. Mm-hmm. Meditation is very important, and stay away from the news. We try not to watch the news more than once a week. It just brings you right down.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing that part, because I think it gives a bit of a footprint on real world experiences as an author, and I think that's so important in current day situation. Now, when people want to get their hands on your books, do they have to go to an Amazon, or can they find it somewhere else online?
It should be on my website, GERALDSTANEK.com. It should be available there. Vizia.com, that's the publisher. I'm not sure where else they're going to have it available. That's up to Vizia. Mm-hmm. I think mainly Amazon. But
well, look, thank you so very much for sharing everything that you're sharing with the My Future Business audience today. It is fascinating.
Well,
it is a topic that I've not heard of, visionary fiction. I love the idea of it. I love to look through your book covers. They're bright, they're colourful, and they're a little bit, they capture your eye, and that's all important, I think, for myself. Now,
that's great.
Look, so for everybody who is on the show today, as is the case, I will be making some links back to Gerald and his wonderful work, and that will be at GERALDSTANEK.com. So, Gerald, in closing, again, thank you for sharing everything about your wonderful work, and thank you for spending some time with me on the My Future Business show today.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.